Figure it out yourself. That was the last thing Stephanie screamed before slamming the gas pedal, peeling out of a gas station in Billings, Montana, leaving me behind 200 miles from home. Her sisters, Jessica and Vanessa, cackled in the back seat like it was the best joke of their lives. My name's John. I'm 34. I work construction for North Peak Engineering, and until that moment, I'd been married to Stephanie for 8 years. We were supposed to be on a weekend getaway, her cousin's wedding, just the four of us in her sedan, splitting gas and motel rooms. But the whole ride up felt off. Stephanie kept shooting glances at her sisters in the rearview mirror, little whispers, secret smirks. When I asked what was going on, she'd just smile. Nothing, babe, just sister stuff. I should have trusted my gut. An hour outside Billings, we stopped for gas. I ran in to grab coffee, used the restroom, came out, and the car was already running. Stephanie rolled down the window, a strange smile on her face. "Get in the car, Stephanie," I said, walking toward the passenger side. "Actually," she said slowly, "we've been talking. We think it's time you learned some independence." "What?" Jessica leaned forward. "You're always so clingy, John. Like a little puppy following Steph around." Vanessa chimed in. "Think of it as a mini adventure." I looked down at the keys in my hand. House keys. My truck was back in Denver, parked at home. "This isn't funny," I said. "Whatever joke this is, it's gone too far." Stephanie just smiled wider. "It's not a joke, it's a prank. You're always so serious, John. Maybe this'll teach you to laugh." Then she yelled it. "Figure it out yourself," and drove off. I stood there watching the taillights vanish down Highway 2, clutching nothing but my wallet, my phone, and the crushing realization that my wife and her sisters had just abandoned me in the middle of nowhere. The October wind knifed through my jacket. Snow was in the air. I called Stephanie, straight to voicemail, called Jessica, same. Vanessa had blocked me months ago after some dumb argument I barely remembered. That's when I knew. This wasn't a prank. This was a message. I walked back into the gas station and asked the clerk how much a bus ticket to Denver would be. "No buses run here," he said. "Closest Greyhound is 40 miles east, in Billings." I met Stephanie 9 years ago at a job site. She was doing environmental consulting. I was pouring concrete. She was sharp, magnetic, the kind of person who made you feel like you were the only one in the room. Her sisters? Different story. Jessica, 2 years older, big tech marketer, always had something to say. Usually something smug. But I never imagined this. Not like this. Vanessa was the youngest, 28, aimless and full of attitude. From day one, her and Jessica acted like I'd stolen their sister. Family dinners filled with private jokes I wasn't part of. Vacations planned without me in mind. 100 little cuts that bled over time. "They're just protective," Stephanie would say whenever I brought it up. "They'll come around." They didn't. They got worse after the wedding. Jessica started taking shots at me. How I was holding Stephanie back, keeping her from traveling or taking risks. Vanessa rolled her eyes anytime I offered to help, changing a tire, fixing a leak. "Not everything needs a man to solve it," she'd snap. It all built up. Stephanie glued to her phone, always texting, always them. Plans canceled last minute because one of her sisters had a crisis. Last year, she missed our anniversary to help Vanessa move. The year before, she bailed on my birthday dinner because Jessica had drama with her boyfriend. "Family comes first," she'd always say. And I understood that. I respected it. But wasn't I family too? The drive to Montana had warning signs all over it. They insisted I leave my truck behind. We'd all ride together. Stephanie booked the hotel in her name only. Jessica cracked jokes about how boring I'd become. "Remember when you used to be fun?" Vanessa said from the back seat. "Before you got all domestic?" I laughed it off, but it hit deep. I worked 60-hour weeks to keep us comfortable. I fixed what broke. I planned getaways. I remembered dates no one else did. I thought that's what being a good husband meant. But standing there in a dusty gas station parking lot, with the Montana sun bleeding into the hills, I realized I hadn't been wrong about how to love, just who I was loving. The clerk let me use the station's landline. I called a taxi in Billings. $60 I didn't really have, but I needed to get to the Greyhound station. 14 hours on a bus back to Denver. 14 hours staring out the window, rethinking everything. The woman I'd married, the life I'd built, the silence in my phone where an apology should have been. No text, no call. They hadn't gone too far. This was exactly how far they meant to go. But no message ever came. By midnight, somewhere outside Casper, Wyoming, it finally clicked. This wasn't about independence. It wasn't about helping me loosen up. It was about humiliation. It was about showing me where I really stood, beneath their feet, outside their circle, the punchline in their private comedy. I thought back to every time I'd backed down to keep the peace, every time I'd swallowed their jabs, every time I'd apologized just to avoid conflict. It wasn't kindness, it was surrender. And the worst part? Not being left behind. It was realizing this had probably been weeks, maybe months, in the making. I could see them now, sitting in Jessica's apartment, wine glasses in hand, giggling over how clueless I was. When the bus pulled into Denver at 8 a.m., I already knew what I had to do. I took a cab home. No car in the driveway. The house, silent, untouched since Friday. I called in sick. Then, for the first time in 8 years, I went through Stephanie's things. Not out of jealousy, out of desperation to understand who I'd really married. Her laptop was locked, but her browser, wide open. Group chats with Jessica and Vanessa stretched back months. Screenshots of our private texts, captioned with laughing emojis. Photos of me asleep, dead to the world as usual. Zero awareness. Jokes at my expense, shared like trophies. But it was the Montana thread that crushed me. Jessica, we should totally ditch him somewhere and see how long it takes him to get home. Vanessa, OMG, yes. He's so dependent on Steph for everything. Stephanie, you guys are terrible, but it would be hilarious. They'd planned it all. The gas station, the fake independence speech, even the contingency. If he makes it home before us, he'll probably just call his mom or something. Jessica replied, "Big baby." I closed the laptop, sat in silence. Then I stood up, went upstairs, packed a bag, walked out without a note, without turning off the lights, without locking the door. The same way they'd driven off from me. Except this time, I wasn't coming back. I drove straight to my brother Kevin's place in Colorado Springs. He worked nights, lived alone, always kept a spare room. I showed up with a duffel bag and no words. He opened the door, handed me a beer. "How long you staying?" I shrugged. "Don't know yet." Kevin never liked Stephanie. He never said it outright. But he never stayed long at family dinners, never smiled when she entered the room. He just knew. Long before I did. I told Kevin everything. The prank. The group chats. The months of secret planning behind my back. When I finished, he shook his head. "Jesus, John, you're better off without her." Monday morning, I called my supervisor at North Peak and requested a transfer. There was a hospital reno project in Colorado Springs, shorthanded and behind schedule. He didn't ask why, just told me I could start Wednesday. By Tuesday afternoon, my phone started lighting up. Stephanie was back. I let it ring. Voicemail. "John, where are you? I came home and you're just gone. That's not like you. Call me back. We need to talk." No apology. No mention of what she'd done. Just confusion. Like I was the one who vanished without a word. I blocked her. An hour later, Jessica. Blocked. Then Vanessa. They were persistent. They started using other numbers. Stephanie's work lines, unknown area codes. The message never changed. You're overreacting. It was just a joke. Come home. We need to fix this. Thursday evening, Kevin walked in with a weird look. She's here, he said, sitting in her car across the street. I looked out the window. Stephanie's sedan. She saw me and got out. I met her in the lobby before she reached the door. John, thank God, she said, rushing forward. I've been so worried. I stepped back. What do you want, Stephanie? I want you to come home. Let's talk. Like adults. Talk about what? I asked. How you abandoned me 200 miles from home? How you laughed about it? How you planned it with your sisters like I was some idiot test subject? Her smile faltered. For a second, the mask slipped. Underneath, not guilt, not remorse, just irritation. It was a prank, John. You're acting like we committed a crime. You left me stranded, on purpose, for laughs. Because you needed it, she snapped. There it was, the real reason. You're so dependent, clingy. We thought maybe if you had to figure something out alone, you'd grow up a little. The lobby was silent, just the fluorescent hum above us. I stared at the woman I'd spent 8 years loving and realized I didn't know her at all. I'm not coming home, I said. She blinked. Don't be ridiculous. You can't just disappear because your feelings got hurt. Watch me. I turned and walked back to the elevator. She followed, voice rising, promises, excuses, half-threats, twisted logic. I didn't hear a word, because finally, I had stopped listening. The elevator doors slid shut. She was still talking. Friday morning, I got a text from an unknown number. This is Jessica. Stephanie's really upset. You need to fix this. I showed it to Kevin over coffee. He didn't even blink. Change your number. So I did. 3 weeks later, I'd settled into a new rhythm. Days spent working the hospital site. Evenings tuning Kevin's old truck. Weekends filled with small, quiet victories. Choosing what to eat, what to watch, what to fix, without asking anyone's permission. I found a tiny apartment on the south side of Colorado Springs. No matching decor, no color debates, no compromises. It wasn't much, but it was mine. For the first time in years, I felt like me again. Then the phone rang. Mom, John, honey? Stephanie came by the house. I'd been dodging my parents' calls, too raw to explain the separation. But Stephanie hadn't waited. What did she say? I asked. She said, you're having some kind of breakdown, that you disappeared after a family trip and won't answer her calls. I could hear the unease in Mom's voice. She'd always liked Stephanie, thought she grounded me, stabilized me. It's not a breakdown, Mom. We're just having problems. What kind of problems you can't work out? I didn't want to say it. Didn't want to explain the group chats, the months of orchestrated humiliation. It would sound petty, like I couldn't take a joke. I'll call you later, I told her. I need to think. But after I hung up, one truth hit hard. Stephanie was still steering the story, still casting herself as the victim, still painting me as the one who cracked and ran. That weekend, I drove back to Denver. Not to the house I'd shared with her, but to Marcus's place. Old friend, construction guy, had stood at my wedding. When he opened the door, he nodded, handed me a beer. Heard you and Stephanie split, he said. Sorry, man. What did she tell you? Just that you bailed after a fight. Said she was wrecked over it. There it was again, her version. Where I was the one who snapped. Where she was the heartbroken wife left behind. We sat on his back porch. I told him everything. The gas station, the group chat, the months of slow, deliberate sabotage. He shook his head. That's messed up, man. Why would she even do that? I stared at the fading sky. I think she wanted me gone, not forever. Just long enough to feel powerful, to remind me how small I was in her world. Marcus was silent for a while. Then he said, you know what I remember? At your wedding reception. You were talking to some of my guys, just chatting, laughing, normal stuff. But every time you looked like you were having fun, Stephanie would swoop in, make up some reason to pull you away. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I finally understood what that had been, too. I remembered it then, how Stephanie kept pulling me away from conversations at our wedding. We need to thank this aunt. Come take pictures with that group. I thought she was just being thoughtful, a gracious hostess. But maybe she just didn't like seeing me happy without her. That night, I drove past the house we used to share. Her car was in the driveway, lights on in the living room, her shadow moving across the walls. I didn't stop, didn't slow down, just kept driving. But seeing that house, remembering the life I'd tried so hard to build, made something clear. I wasn't just escaping a broken marriage. I was heading towards something better. In the months that followed, I started doing things I should have done years ago. I opened my own bank account, transferred my half of the savings, found a divorce lawyer, Patricia Coleman, calm, sharp, no nonsense. She listened to everything without flinching. "Do you have documentation of the harassment?" she asked. I showed her the blocked numbers, the barrage of messages from Jessica and Vanessa, the calls to my job. She went to my parents' house too, I said. Told them I was having a breakdown. Patricia scribbled notes. "We can work with this. Colorado's a no-fault divorce state, but harassment can still factor in. For restraining orders, division of assets, if it comes to that." I signed the paperwork that afternoon. Patricia would handle everything: filing, serving Stephanie, beginning proceedings. As I got up to leave, she looked me in the eye. "One more thing," she said. "Don't respond. No calls, no texts, no showing up to talk it out. Anything you say can be twisted, used to make you look unstable or vindictive. What if she comes to my job? Document it. Call the police if needed. But do not engage." Back at the hospital site, things were moving forward. I'd been promoted to crew leader, 5 guys under me. Steady work, decent pay. No one cared about my personal life. I showed up, did my job, earned my peace. I even started evening classes, business management at the community college. Something I'd always wanted, but never had time for. Not when my life was spent cleaning up Stephanie's family dramas. For the first time in forever, I had space to breathe, to ask myself what I wanted, not just react to what everyone else expected. 2 months after I filed, Kevin called while I was on site. "Hey, your lawyer wants to talk. Says it's important." That afternoon, I walked into Patricia's office. She had a stack of papers on her desk and a faint, satisfied smile. "Your wife's been busy," she said. "Hired her own lawyer. They're claiming abandonment, saying you left without warning, that you refused to go to counseling." Of course, Stephanie wasn't finished playing the victim. She was just getting started. "Abandonment," I repeated. Patricia nodded. "It's a stretch, but they're claiming you left deliberately and vindictively. They're contesting the division of assets." A cold weight settled in my gut. Even now, even after everything, Stephanie was still trying to control the narrative. "But here's the twist," Patricia said, leaning forward. "I had a private investigator do some digging. Your wife's been telling people you were abusive, that she had to flee for her safety. That's a lie. I know, and I can prove it." She slid a stack of printouts across the desk, social media posts, photos of Stephanie and her sisters partying at a bar in Billings, smiling, laughing, raising shot glasses, posted at 11:04 p.m., the same night they left me at that gas station. Captions like, "Girls' Weekend, finally free." "This," Patricia said, tapping the page, "destroys their narrative. You don't get to claim fear while celebrating someone's absence." I stared at the photos. Jessica was even wearing my Denver Broncos cap, the one I left in the car that night. "There's more," Patricia said, sliding over another bundle. "The group chat threads. Your wife didn't lock her privacy settings. Our investigator found everything. Screenshots of the same conversations I'd seen on Stephanie's laptop, and dozens I hadn't. Months of messages, mocking me, planning, laughing. Bets on how long it'd take me to crawl back. Mock concern, real cruelty. We file our response tomorrow, Patricia said, and then we end this. The divorce hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in March. I wore my best suit, the same one I got married in 8 years earlier. Stephanie sat across the aisle with her attorney, a clean-cut, high-fee type with 2 white teeth. She looked thinner, tired. When our eyes met, she tried to smile like we were still allies. Her attorney went first. He painted me as the unstable husband who ghosted his wife over a harmless family misunderstanding. Said I refused counseling. Said I abandoned her to punish her. Your Honor, he concluded, Mr. John Thompson was clearly looking for an excuse to leave this marriage. He turned a minor prank into justification for abandoning his responsibilities. Then Patricia stood, calm, precise, devastating. Your Honor, we submit evidence directly contradicting the petitioner's claims. She handed the judge a thick file. One by one, she dismantled the story. Here are text messages between the petitioner and her sisters, months of premeditated planning. Here are social media posts, taken the night of the incident, showing them celebrating the abandonment they now call trauma. Here is documented harassment, calls to my client's workplace, messages from multiple numbers. There was no drama in her voice, no shouting, just facts. And that made it hit even harder. And here, Patricia added, are records of continued harassment after my client explicitly requested no contact. The courtroom fell silent as the judge reviewed the documents. Stephanie's attorney leaned in, whispering urgently, but it was too late. I saw it in her face, the panic, the unraveling. Additionally, Patricia said, voice steady, surgical, the petitioner has been spreading false claims about my client's mental health and character to friends and family. This is not the behavior of a concerned spouse. It's a pattern of manipulation and emotional abuse. See, when the judge finally looked up, his face was unreadable, but his voice wasn't. Based on the evidence presented, I am granting the divorce as requested. Assets will be divided equally. No spousal support is awarded. The court finds no evidence of abandonment or abuse by the respondent. Stephanie tried to approach me in the hallway outside, but Patricia stepped between us, firm as ever. No contact, she said. The order still stands. I walked out without looking back. 3 years after that gas station in Montana, it was over. The business classes paid off. 6 months later, I launched my own company, Thompson Contracting. We started small, bathroom remodels, deck repairs. But I showed up. I followed through. I kept my word. Clients noticed. Kevin came on as my first hire. Then Marcus joined us. Word got around. We were the crew that didn't cut corners. I bought a modest house on the west side of Colorado Springs. A garage for my tools. A quiet yard for thinking. No debates about throw pillows or backsplash colors. No walking on eggshells, just peace. About a year after the divorce was finalized, I ran into Marcus at the hardware store. Hey, you hear about Stephanie? He asked. I hadn't thought about her in months. What about her? Divorced again. Married some guy from her office 6 months after your split. Didn't even last a year. I picked up the screws I needed and headed to checkout. Don't you want to know what happened? He called after me. Not really. And I meant it. Stephanie and her sisters eventually faced the consequences. Jessica lost her marketing job. HR cited the harassment allegations tied to her behavior toward me. Vanessa's smear campaign fell apart when mutual friends compared stories and realized she was lying. As for Stephanie, her rushed rebound marriage, then another divorce, wrecked what was left of her reputation in our old circle. The people she'd once tried so hard to impress. stopped answering her calls. Some lessons you only learn the hard way. Some stories don't need revenge, just distance. And sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away and never turn around. This story is a raw, powerful testament to the price of misplaced loyalty and the strength it takes to reclaim your life after betrayal. John's journey teaches us that love without respect is a slow erosion of the self. What began as small slights, subtle exclusions, and whispered jokes eventually revealed a marriage built on manipulation, not partnership. His wife's prank wasn't about humor. It was about control, humiliation, and a quiet campaign to break his confidence. But instead of retaliating, John chose dignity. He walked away, not in weakness, but in strength, refusing to be defined by cruelty. He rebuilt his life with integrity, focus, and independence. He learned that protecting your peace is more important than preserving a broken bond. That silence in the face of cruelty is not maturity. It's surrender. The core message is this: when people show you your place in their life, believe them. And when that place is beneath them, step out of their shadow. Healing doesn't always need confrontation. Sometimes the loudest triumph is in the quiet rebuilding of your life. Far from the noise of those who once tried to diminish you, let them drown in their own echo. You keep walking.